Welcome to the Budget Mom YouTube channel. I'm Kamiko Love from thebudgetmom.com, and today we're going to be looking at another real life budget. So this is an amazing story by a reader who has her own business. So we're going to be showing you what her income looks like as a business owner, as well as, unfortunately, her husband passed away and she is collecting Social Security for her children until her children turn 18. So we're going to be looking at that income as well. She has debt, she has savings goals. So let's look at how I would manage her money using the Budget by Paycheck workbook. So let's talk very quickly about our reader, a little bit of her background story and her financial situation. And also let's talk about the first step in the Budget by Paycheck workbook, which is all about figuring out your why. So she says, I realized after my husband's death 9 years ago that my why quickly became my two boys. When you lose someone you love, your priorities change, your normal changes, everything changes. So here's a little bit of her backstory. Since then, since her husband passed, I have been using retail therapy to replace the smile I often lose. It scares me that my boys, now 10 and 12, are growing so fast. I ultimately started my own business because of the flexibility it provides. I live in the Pacific Northwest where the cost of living is crazy expensive. I had to do something so I can be there when the boys needed me. I'm all alone here with no family, but I'm hustling every day to make ends meet. I have to constantly remind myself I got this. I want to provide a home for my boys, not a townhome that I rent. I want to be able to buy that first car and pay for college, but I'm scared. Fear in the unknown is holding me back. We do receive my ex-husband's Social Security each month, and that definitely helps, but it does come to an end when the boys turn 18. That end is near and has awoken me to start saving for them. So that's a little bit of her backstory and her first step in the Budget by Paycheck process, which is really establishing her why. I can tell with this reader as I'm reading her story and when I connected with her that there is a big emotional tie to her reason and purpose of being on this journey. It's her two boys. It seems to me that she's been through a lot in her financial journey, especially being married, then all of a sudden losing her husband and now working and strictly depending on her income. So first and foremost, it's an amazing story that she was able to not only start a business, but to start a business that allowed her to find the freedom to spend more time with their children and really make that successful in her life as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. So that's an amazing story in itself, and it's something I really wanted to point out in this video. So when we are sharing these real life budgets, it's important to know that the second step in the Budget by Paycheck process is tracking your spending and bringing financial awareness into your life. We're assuming that the readers have already done that because the information that we ask to provide can only be provided by doing that second step. So the next is to identify her regular bills. Now first, before we do that, let's talk about her income. So she gets $7,518 a month for income. That includes her biweekly paycheck now that she pays herself from owning her business. She gives herself $2,500 every other Friday. So we're looking at the month of June. That's going to fall on the 12th and 26th that she's receiving her paycheck. She has another source of income, which is that Social Security from her ex-husband. And she's getting that on the third Wednesday of each month, which totals the $7,518. She identified her regular bills, which is the third step in the Budget by Paycheck process. Now, when looking at these bills, one of the things that she did tell me is that her car is on a lease. She has a 3-year lease on the car payment. And I'm going to be talking, I have it here kind of chicken scratch written down, but there are some things that and some tips and some suggestions that I want to make to this reader. She has a couple of big things coming up. Now, she didn't tell us when her car lease is going to end, but I want to talk very quickly at the end of this video, some suggestions and tips that I have for her. So she's identified her regular bills. Her regular bills equal $3,831.80. Now, this tells me that she's doing and she has organized her finances in a way that is really important. Her income definitely covers her expenses, which leaves her a lot of freedom and options to choose where to throw her leftover discretionary income. So these are her bills and the dates that they're due. This is the third step in the budget by paycheck process, is getting your regular bills, your month-to-month fixed expenses written down. Look at it. Does your income that you're currently making cover these fixed expenses? Because what you might end up finding out is you might be in the red every month. And if that's the case, we need to start tweaking, cutting, and perfecting to make our budgets work. So she's doing all right on that step. The next thing I want to show very quickly is you then have to identify your variable expenses. Now, these are the expenses that fluctuate month to month. These are what I assign for cash envelopes. She's identified her variable expenses or her cash envelopes in her budget. $5.50 a month for groceries, $100 for gas. She does assign herself $100 a month for fast food, $300 for beauty, $400 for miscellaneous, and $40 for pet. Now, when I look over these cash envelopes, I'm okay with the way that she has organized this and the limits she has set for herself. They're realistic to her life. And even though some might say, well, $300 a month on beauty is pretty expensive, but we don't know what her beauty includes. Does that include haircuts for her boys? Does that include her gym membership? So, and the $400 miscellaneous, I think, is very smart because it gives her the freedom to choose how she spends her money if unexpected things come up. She has a little backup plan to her backup plan. She has this miscellaneous category in her budget where she says, well, you know what? If something comes up that I did not budget for or plan for, I am prepared with cash and I don't feel the pressure to use my credit cards. So I'm okay with the variable expenses. The next thing that we're going to talk about, and let's talk very quickly, we talked about her bills. Let's look at her savings goals. She has a couple of different things going on. Now, when I read her savings goals, I already immediately knew that saving for her future and preparing for the future with cash was important to her. So she has two bigger goals that are important. The first is an emergency fund, which she already has $4,100 saved for her emergency fund, but she wants to hit $10,000. That's a short-term goal. She wants to save for a down payment on a house. She has a $30,000 goal. We're calling that a medium-term goal, okay? She wants to accomplish that in the next 3 to 4 years. But she also has savings goals within her day-to-day life. These are what we call her sinking funds. She knows when she wants to reach those goals. Okay. She knows what those goals are for. So she has Christmas, back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, her son's scout gear. Okay, I'm taking it that he's in Boy Scouts and he's having to pay for uniforms and his gear. He has Peyton's braces. Okay, her son's braces that she's saving up to pay with for cash rather than on credit. And then she has an ongoing savings contribution to a health account, $60 a month. There's no end goal. This is just like clockwork for her. She sticks $60 a month into a health account for herself. So these are her savings goals. Now let's looking at her debt. She's actually doing okay on debt. So she has a Citi card, a BECU card, and a Barclay card. These are her balances here. She has interest rates of about the same interest rate, all around 13%. She's listed her minimum payments and she also listed her due dates. Now, I prioritize the debt in the way that I feel she should tackle these debts. Because the interest rates are, two of them are the exact same, we're going to tackle the first debt. We're going to pay the highest balance first, which is the BECU. Now you might be saying, well, that's the lowest interest rate, only by a certain, not even a percentage. We're going to tackle this high balance first. We're then going to, when you have two different debts with the same interest rate, I always suggest tackling the one with the highest balance first, because ultimately you are paying the most interest on that debt because you're paying the most interest on the highest balance if the interest rates are the same across a couple of different debts. So we're going to tackle the Citi card, and then her last card she's going to pay is the Barclay card. So that's her debt picture. So let's look at how I would organize all this information into the budget by paycheck method. So the first one is looking at our budget calendar. We're looking at the month of June. Now, what I do is I highlight each pay day with a different highlighter color, and then I highlight which expenses I'm going to pay with that specific paycheck in that same color. So she's getting her paycheck on the 12th, she's getting the Social Security payment on the 17th, and then she's getting paid again on the 26th in the month of June. Now these yellow ones that you're seeing are bills that were paid with her last paychecks in May. So those are covered. Essentially, we're not looking at those. So this is what her June calendar looks like. Now, of course, she would have other things on here. Holidays, events, anything that needs to be included in her budget. But for the purpose of this video, I'm organizing her information based on what I was given. And that was just her bills, expenses, and her paycheck. So let's look at how we would organize this into a budget, or also the paycheck bill tracker. All right, so the first paycheck we're going to talk about is the payday on the 12th. She gets paid $2,500 for that paycheck. As you remember, if we look at her income, she's getting paid every other Friday for $2,500. We are going to tackle the BECU card payment that's due on the 13th, the Barclay card minimum payment. Now keep in mind, your minimum payments for your debts should be counted as a regular bill. You always have to make your minimum payments. We're going to pay the boys' insurance due on the 15th. Then she gets paid again on the 17th. So we're taking care of those three bills. We also took her variable cash envelopes, and we decided, well, we're not going to pull out cash and stuff our cash envelopes every single time we're paid. We're going to do it twice a month. And we're going to do it on the paychecks that she pays herself from her business, not from her Social Security. So we took the amounts that she gave us. Now keep in mind, she gave us monthly amounts, and we divided it by 2. We divided it among these 2 paychecks, not the Social Security paycheck. So we took care of the first paycheck's envelopes. Then we decided, well, you know what? She has enough left over with this first paycheck in the month to cover all of the sinking fund savings goals that she had for herself for the entire month. Rather than having to do it every single time she gets paid and making that budgeting process more complicated, we're doing it once a month. So do you see, even though she's getting paid and we're budgeting by paycheck using the budget by paycheck method, when we stuff our cash envelopes and take care of our sinking funds may not have to be every paycheck. Let's try to make the process as simple as possible. So we took care of all of her, so we paid her regular bills online, which equal $40.45. If we subtract that from the income she has left over, we take care of her cash envelopes or her variable spending, which leaves us $13.10 left over. We then use that $13.10 to take care of saving for the future. These are holidays and events in her life where she feels the most pressure to use her credit cards. Not anymore. She's going to be prepared with cash. After taking care of that, we are going to do a couple of different things. We are going to save and pay off debt at the same time, but we're going to do it in the order of priority and importance. We're going to throw a little bit into emergency savings, but a bigger chunk to debt. So $200 to debt, $145 to emergency savings. All of these expenses minus her income equals 0. So that's what's going to be happening with her June 12th paycheck. Now, you would create a separate budget or a paycheck bill tracker for every time you're paid if you're using the budget by paycheck method. So we're going to tackle the next payday, which is the 17th. On that day, she gets her Social Security of $2,518, everything in blue. Now, we are using income from this paycheck for Social Security on the 17th to not only take care of bills in June, we are now introducing bills in July. Essentially, what she would need to do, and you can see these are highlighted in blue in July to match this paycheck. It tells us immediately we are paying these bills in July with this paycheck on June 17th. But she needs to use these last two paydays to cover the first couple of bills from the 1st until she gets paid again on the 10th. She's got to pay for these somehow. And she has to do that using these paychecks in June. So on the paycheck bill tracker, you would write down 7/1. You can see we're moving into the next month. That leaves us $33 left over. We're going to put that $33 towards extra debt. Now with her last paycheck in June, which is $626, we have $2,500. She's going to pay her last two bills here in June, and then she's going to take care of all those first bills in the beginning of July that were not paid with the 17th, which is her fresh patch, which what I'm thinking is a local delivery for food and fruits and veggies. And then she gets paid on the 10th and can take care of that on the 10th. Now, because you are doing a paycheck bill tracker or a budget for every single time you are paid, you would do the same thing what you did in June for July. You would create a paycheck bill tracker. And once you start doing this, you're going to see a pattern. There are certain expenses and things you're going to do with each thing that you get paid. So I know with her first paycheck on the 10th, we are not only covering her bills to the next payday, but we're covering those cash envelopes and we're taking care of her sinking funds for the entire month, just like we did for the first paycheck of her June or her first paycheck in June. They mirror each other, they mimic each other. Okay, we're getting into that pattern of creating a system that kind of repeats as far as paying her regular bills, her sinking funds, and her variable envelopes. If we look at her paycheck on 7/15, which is her Social Security, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cover her what we need to for her bills that she needs to cover until her next paycheck. You can see that the paycheck bill tracker that goes with this paycheck are highlighted in the same color. This budget corresponds to this paycheck. And then she's going to use it to cover those bills in August. From the 1st of the month until she gets her first paycheck in August, just like we did with her Social Security check in June. The extra is going to go towards debt. Her last paycheck of the month, which is the 24th, she's going to be paying health insurance and the iCloud. She's going to take care of her variable envelopes again. Now on this one, you can see I'm suggesting that she kind of tackle her two main big goals, which is emergency savings, the house, and debt. Yes, I'm telling her to tackle 3 goals at once, but she's throwing money at them based on what is important. How much she throws to each one is based on the importance in her life. Now, the reason I'm saying emergency and house savings is important is because of one specific thing, and we're going to be talking about that now. So before we end this video, there's a couple things that I want to suggest or recommend for this reader. One is her car lease. Now, she did say to us it's a 3-year car lease, but she didn't tell us when that lease was over. So it would be my suggestion that before that lease is over, she saves up to buy a car with cash. Now, I'm not saying a brand new car, but I do feel that if she's in the beginning stages of this car lease, that does leave her enough time to at least get a new car to her. It would be a new car to her, something dependable, not brand new, something affordable, and really get out of the car lease. I am not a believer in car leases. In fact, I think that they're not the best deal. Now, I do realize that a lot of people can't just go out and buy a car with cash right now. But I do think that she has enough time to prepare herself for that move. The next thing I want to talk about is her Social Security income that she's receiving. Now, when I was reading her story, one of the things that's giving her a lot of anxiety, it's putting her into a space where she feels like there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think that when you're dealing with your finances and you have that mindset, sometimes it can be a little scary to make financial decisions because you don't know and you don't feel like you're making the right choice. You don't know which way to go or which decision to choose. So there's a couple of things that I would recommend to her. When her boys turn 18, she's going to lose that Social Security income. Now, as a single parent, me being a single mom, I know that losing income is a big hit to her finances. It's a drastic change. I want her to be prepared for that time. And luckily, time is on her side. She has about 8 years before that happens. So these are the things that I recommend that she tackles between now and when she knows she's going to lose that Social Security income. 1, it's coming up with that down payment on a home. Now, saving $30,000 after looking at her income, her expenses, and the progress I feel like she can make with her debt in 8 years, I feel like that's a doable savings goal. I feel like she can actually reach that savings goal for a down payment on a home. The next is paying off her debt. I want her to be debt-free by the time she loses the Social Security income. Because without debt payments, it's going to free up more of her regular paycheck income from her business to pay for financial goals. So getting out of the lease, we talked about saving for a car and getting out of that lease. Here's another one. She did recommend in her story to me that saving for her child's future, and I mean education, was important to her. And I get that because that was a battle that I also struggle with in the beginning of my journey, being and having limited income, but feeling in my heart as a mom that I want to prepare for my child's future up front. Okay, for me, it was more of I didn't want my son to deal with the same student loan debt that I had to deal with because I wasn't given an option to choose. If I wanted an education, I had no choice but to accept the loans. Now, did I have to accept as many loans and as much as I did? No, that was one of my financial mistakes on my journey. But I think that she should also start preparing for her child's future. I think she needs to look into that option and really have that be a goal for her between now and when she loses that Social Security. Now, I'm not saying she has to save the full amount that she wants to, but to have savings established where she can have some resources to help her children go to college. I think by doing and taking those steps, a lot of that fear and anxiety is going to diminish, and she's going to find more confidence in herself to make the financial decisions that she knows is necessary. She knows in her heart is right. It's just kind of being clouded right now with that uncertainty of the unknown. So this is our real life budget today. If you found this video helpful, please like it and don't forget to subscribe.